Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. And you're probably wondering, who are they going to talk to today? Guess what? Just going to be us. Just me and Jennifer. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
I sing so bad. You didn't tell me we were going to do that. I didn't practice.
I'm a songbird. So, yeah, well, no, it just kind of came out of me.
Just
music is in me. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. You and I. Okay, so that's our musical interlude. There you go. You can be my backup singer. But, so, y'all, we're celebrating. This is our 100th episode.
Holy shit. How did we get there?
Right? Yay! Yay for us! Celebratory. Huzzah! Huzzah! In honor of our 100th episode, we got a new review. So I'm going to read this. It says it's from Greek Peru. The top says, superb hosts, timely insights. She goes on to say, or she, we think it's she, goes on to say, Jennifer and Raquel are outstanding. They do their homework and graciously draw their guests out to address not only the subject at hand, but to connect it with important issues we all face. They deliver interest, fun, and bring timely insights to bear. On top of that, they taught me something about my own work as a writer. I'm grateful. Jennifer and Raquel, much continued success to you.
Woohoo!
Thank you so much. Thank you. We love you. We adore you. And much continued success to you as well.
It's super cool. I don't know if people know how much it means to us when we get a comment.
Yeah.
We get so few comments.
We really do. We really do. And y'all, honestly, it's everything for us. That just touches our heart. It's awesome. It really is very, very cool. So, Greek Peru, thank you. It's 100 episodes, Jennifer.
I don't know how we're here. It seems like just yesterday we were both reading our vision statements, shaking into the camera, going, Well, we did it.
We did. We didn't know necessarily what we were doing, but we wanted to do it and we did it.
Jumped right in.
So what do you think that you've learned about yourself, about podcasting, about anything in now 100 episodes?
Well, the first thing I wrote down was we do it for ourselves first. Of course, we love our guests, and of course, we love our listeners. But what I've really learned, and I think you feel the same, but you can say if not, is that what I really learned is that we do this for us, for me and you, because it brings us joy and knowledge, and it opens a world to us that wasn't open before we started this podcast. We have booked so many guests lately, like tons of them. We haven't even had a solo podcast in a very long time. And we book the guests because we're into what they're doing, or we found something interesting, or we followed them for a certain way, or we're promoting something that they do. So the guest aspect is extremely important. And even with that, it's still done for us first. It's like self-love, actually.
Yes, that is a really, really good way to put it. You were telling me about, there was somebody who was telling you that you need to take time off from the podcast. And you're like, I don't need to take time off from that. And they're like, you work too hard, take time off. Almost like trying to make you take time off from the podcast. And you're like, I really love this. It's not something I need to take time off from.
I said I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. We don't have to.
It's interesting because I did just go on vacation with my family, and I did take time off in a lot of ways. Like, we did not record an episode that week. I didn't have my exercise schedule regimen. And in fact, I didn't really exercise the whole time I was there. I did edit one episode. But other than that, I really just sat my ass by the pool for the majority of the day for a week straight. I didn't stop thinking about the podcast and visioning what we could do and where we would be, because again, It is not a job. It is what we choose to do with our
Mm.
time. Of course, it would be great if everybody made comments, donated, got our
Yeah.
mugs, bought us a
Yeah.
cup of coffee. All that would be amazing because we are trying to grow, but that
Yeah.
isn't why we do this.
It's kind of a part of who I am now. Now that we've been doing it and enjoying it and loving it and learning so much from it, I can't imagine my life without it.
Well, you don't have to because I'm not going
Exactly.
anywhere.
Okay, good. Me neither.
Okay, what did you write down?
You know, one of the things that I've learned from doing this is that I figured out what I want to be when I grow up.
Wow, I wish I had that. What do you want to be?
This. I want to do it, this. I want to do this. I like talking about issues and shining a light on other people who are doing great work and giving other people a venue to talk about their stories and to shine a light on their stories.
Okay, let
Like,
me ask you a question.
sure.
You say you want to do this when you grow up. Does
Yeah.
that mean that you want it to replace a job, or would you continue to do it even if it meant that we never really made a dime, that you kept your day job and you just did this on the side on the weekends? We just kept doing
Either
what we're
way.
doing. You
Either
would just
way.
keep doing it?
Either way. Yeah, I really would. Yeah. There is a part of me that's like, I really would love to be my own boss. I have so much freedom in my current job that
So it's kind of, it works together really well for you?
it really does.
Well,
And
that's
so,
100% better than when we first started talking.
yes, because when we first started, I was working at a job that wasn't the best working situation for me and wasn't paying much money, and there was no growth. I wasn't really treated as an equal or as an adult by my then boss. I was just at a point where I have this history of working for difficult bosses. And not that all of the bosses that I've ever had were difficult. I mean, that's not the case, but I had a run of really difficult bosses. And I started to think, well, I'm the common denominator. So maybe it's me. Maybe I need to take myself out of the equation. And maybe I just need to work for me at some point. Which I'm not going to say never. If this becomes a thriving business for us and it can support both of us in ways that we are happy and successful and comfortable and financially stable and free, then sure, great. Yes, this will be it. But I'm not running from it anymore.
Did doing the podcast and all the various guests and all the various messages and the times where we psychoanalyzed each other with our limited ability of not being psychoanalysts, did all of that change the way you feel about your work and allow you to leave it, or would you have left it anyway?
Both. First off, doing the podcast raised my confidence level to a point that it hasn't been at in a very long time. It brought me back to myself, my true self,
Yeah,
my true
me
essence. Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And from talking to our guests and reading the books that we've been reading and talking to even, people who listen and people who write in, it's helped me with my coping skills. I would have left that previous job regardless. Like, I was never going to be a lifer in that job. Definitely because I didn't want to be a lifer at that
Mm-hmm.
job, and because either I was going to quit or my boss was going to just like push me out the door. It was not going to be a life situation. But from talking to everybody and the experience of doing the podcast, I was able to conduct myself in a better way at work to deal with the difficult situation, and so that I wasn't internalizing it anymore. That it wasn't, oh, I'm a bad employee, or oh, life is just going to suck for me, or any of the other 10,000 things that at least I can get in a rut and say to myself, because I was feeling better about myself and I was energetically in a better place. I was better able to search for other positions and be open to things that came to me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because if my confidence level hadn't been there, then when my current situation came up, I would have been like, oh, I don't think I'm the right person for it, or oh, I don't know, I haven't, yeah, I would have found a way to negative my way out of it. It just would not have turned out, I think, the way that it has.
So you've gained more of a trust in yourself.
Yes, that is a really good way to put it. Yes. I think there were flickers of the trust in myself, maybe in college, but then I started to lose that. And I, for a while, just it wasn't there at all. This has brought me back to it and brought it back to where it needs to be. It's in here. I trust in myself in a way that I haven't in a very long time, and maybe didn't even trust in myself even when I was in college and in my 20s.
It's interesting that you say that because I've been thinking a lot about that lately. I think, especially when we talked to Libby and Monica and we started talking about the unbecoming, and I started thinking about what it means to be a woman in this culture.
Yeah.
I had a different experience than you in that in high school, I had a ton of confidence. And then as I went through college, a little bit of employment after college, the Peace Corps, and then into marriage. By the time my marriage dissolved, I think my confidence was kind of in a like a in the toy. Professionally, I was very confident, but like
Right.
what you say about coming back to me, I think me was lost.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think for me, the 20s, my 20s were really, it was a reckoning. That's when my low self confidence hit. I don't know why that
Yeah.
was the period in my life. Professionally, I was very successful. So I took a lot of my self worth from the professional, but I
Mhm.
sort of chopped
Mhm.
off the personal of who I was. And
Mhm.
in my unbecoming, I'm coming back sort of to that as well. And I
Mhm.
think all of our guests have given a tiny piece of the, not even tiny, I shouldn't say tiny. They have given a very specific, a very significant, a very important piece of the
Mhm.
puzzle. And I'll bring it back to the podcast is for us because it has honestly changed my life.
Yeah. I did not expect that. I
No,
didn't
me
expect it to
neither.
have that effect on me at all. I remember, gosh, when was this? I was probably early 30s, maybe. Yeah, that's about right. Early 30s. I was talking to a coworker and I was just like, I'm not passionate about anything anymore. In college, I was passionate about things and passionate about issues, and I was protesting things and leading discussions and doing all the things and being on panels and using my voice. And then by the time my early 30s hit, I was like, where'd that go? I don't even know what I'm passionate about anymore. I mean, I
No,
literally felt like a chunk of me was just gone. And I didn't know how I lost it. I didn't know where it went. I didn't know how to get it back. That was a really, really hard thing. It took a really long time to figure out, okay, I'll figure out what I'm passionate about again at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen, but okay, hopefully it'll happen. And at one point, I was like, maybe I won't be passionate about anything ever again. I need to figure out how to live my life not being passionate about anything.
ugh,
Yeah. And I thought, maybe I'm not ever going to know what I want to be when I grow up. And I was not that kid. Growing up, I knew exactly what I wanted to be.
what did you want to be?
For the longest time, I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay, you've said that
And
before.
and
Yeah.
even when I started college, I was pre-med and then dropped that and was like, yeah, I don't want to be pre-med anymore. But I was still doing all the core stuff, so it didn't matter. And my family was like, well, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And then I decided on my major, and they're like, what the hell are you going to do with that? I was an East
Well,
Asian Studies major.
oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, I loved it. It was great. As liberal arts as you can get, still get a degree, but whatever. I loved it. And my family was like, oh, God. what is she going to do? They're like, you're going to be poor. And I'm like, whatever. Oh, I don't know. And then I was like, okay, I'll go to law school.
You know what this whole thing reeks of to me? Capitalistic conditioning.
Yes. Yes.
Because I'm trying to avoid this as a parent right now, and it's really difficult, I find.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like our parents, God love them, they wanted to do right by us. They sort of push towards a certain career. They want you to be successful. They think they're setting you up for the future. And when you say you want to do something a little off kilter from the mainstream, they say, oh, you can't make money doing that.
Yep. Yep.
But how do you know?
Yeah. And my family didn't push me to do anything. I mean, they're just like, you're good. I mean, except get an education. That was the one thing. My family was like, oh, you're going to college, which that was never an issue for me. Of course, I was always going to go to college. I was that kid. At a very early age, I was like, this is what I'm going to be. And so everybody, even extended family, was like, oh, this is what she's going to do. She's been talking about it since she was 6. And then when I didn't do it, they're like, who is this child?
Right.
I was like, I don't know. It was the whole thing of, what are you going to do? Who are you going to be? And I'm like,
I never had any idea growing up. The only inkling I ever had was, I think in my junior year, somebody said something in a class that sparked for me that I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And I even started looking at pilot schools. I called a recruiter. He came to my home. My mom and my stepfather were there. And this is the only pursuing I ever did. Other than that, I just let everything fall into my lap. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And he came and talked about the pilot program. He was drunk, the recruiter.
no.
My mom didn't take him very seriously. I remember my mother and my stepfather both saying that I wasn't smart enough in math to be a pilot, which I actually was. But I grew up thinking I wasn't smart. I really grew up thinking that. And so I just went to Western Michigan because my stepfather was a professor there. It's the only school I ever applied to. And when I needed to pick a major, I didn't know what to do. So I thought, theater, I can be an actor, right?
No.
I'd never been in a play. I had never done anything. You had to write an essay. And I wrote an essay about how every day in your life you're an actor anyway, that we're all playing parts and we all acted out. And they accepted me into the theater program. I'd never done one play, nothing. And before school started, I changed my major to fashion merchandising. But that's how I got accepted in. Yeah. So really what I was describing at a very young age was the fact that I was wearing a mask everywhere I went. I described that in a paper.
Wow.
It's interesting, isn't it? I said I didn't need an acting class because I had already been acting my whole life.
Wow. That's pretty deep.
Yeah. But I never really put a whole lot of thought into that until recently. And then when we did that episode about the masks that we wear, I think my problem with self-confidence is that I grew up with a lot of it. I think mainly because of my father was very pro-feminist.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, now that I'm learning a little bit more about femininity and sexual identity, maybe he was a little bit heavy on the pro-feminist in that at that time, pro-feminist meant that we could do what men do.
Right. Okay.
You know, to be successful, we were more like men.
Yeah.
Nothing against my father. He did a great job with that. Now I'm learning that maybe I squashed some of my femininity to be more like men. But that being said, I had a lot of self-confidence as a kid. It wasn't really until, like I said, that period of college, Peace Corps, early marriage, where I really kind of lost my identity. And I think that was because of the mask, the roles, I am worker, wife, mother. And then who are you? Who are you at the end of the day? When you go to work for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day and you're taking care of other people, who are you? I remember stuffing myself into dresses that I didn't even like because I thought that's what other people liked. And other people specifically being my ex-husband. When I had those dresses on, I was very uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable, but I thought that that was who I was supposed to be. So I was like stifling me.
Yeah.
That's why it's clear. It's obvious now, right?
Yeah. I remember as a little kid having a lot of confidence as a little bitty kid, but confidence in my intelligence. Like I always knew I was a smart kid. We moved around so much, like during my early formative years, that I sort of felt, and I didn't really have the language for it at that time. I really didn't feel settled or rooted anywhere. There was no consistency in my friends or where I went to school. Like I couldn't tell you half the names of the schools I went to from like preschool to 7th grade. I could maybe name one or two because we moved around so much. And there's only maybe 3 friends from growing up that I remember the names of. That's when my confidence started to shift or wane or whatever. But then I get to high school, and I mean, yeah, I'm still the smart kid, so there's, I guess, maybe some confidence there. But I started diving, and I was good at it. I got my confidence from that, but it was always something outside of me.
External. Yeah.
Yep. In college, kind of the same thing. I was involved in XYZ, so people knew me because of those things, but the confidence wasn't internal. It was all based on what I did. And then graduating from college, going to law school, working as an adult, it's all what you do. What do you do? What do you do? What do you go to parties? You meet new people. They're like, hey, what do you do? Instead of who are you? What do you like? How do you know the host or, whatever. It was always this external locus instead of internally located. Now I feel like that's well on its way.
So do you feel like the podcast helped that to happen? And if so, B, how did the podcast lead to that?
Yes, definitely the podcast has helped with that. The way that it has helped with that is one, that we just did it. We jumped right in. I have to say, this became a safe space for me to take those risks and to have the conversations and to talk to people and to reach out to people that I've never met before, had no connection to, and like, hey, my friend and I do this thing, want to be a guest. And the thing is, normally in my personal life, if somebody rejected me, it would be so easy for that to just get turned in and turned on myself and blah, blah. But with the podcast, okay, that's cool. We'll catch you later. No big deal. It's been a huge part of it.
What did it feel like? Who was it? Alyssa Cousins was the first one you really reached out to that you didn't know way back when.
Yeah.
How did that feel in your body back then versus 100 episodes later? How does it feel now to reach out to someone you admire and you don't know?
Let's see. How do I put this? There's this pride with it of, I have done this thing. We have created this amazing project. We would love it if you would be on it. Are you interested? And if they say no, okay. It's like there's a whole entity behind me now. It's not just me like, we're trying to do this thing and we're trying to build it. Will you be our guest? It's not.
So you feel successful.
I really, really do. Part of that for me, it's because years ago, because I wasn't successful professionally at all, I had to redefine successful for myself and not compare myself to my friends who had been at jobs for 15 years, 20 years, making X number of dollars, blah, 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 going all the vacations, blah. And I had to redefine success for myself. If I hadn't done that, there would still be a part of my brain that would be like, okay, yeah, this is just your little project. You don't get paid for it. That's not success. Screw that shit now, because this is definitely success. Like, I could not be more proud of what you and I do with this. What about you, as far as like reaching out? Were you ever nervous about reaching out to people? Because I don't think you ever were.
Not really. You and I approach things differently. My online dating, I approach differently than you do. Like,
because I don't approach it at all.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. I don't take it personally if they say no to the podcast. Like, it doesn't hurt my internal. In fact, what I've noticed is that the majority of people that I have admired and reached out to, most of them say yes, which is amazing. Some of them don't respond at all. There's a few kind of famous-ish people that I've tried to reach out to, and I don't even know if they get my message.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like Gabor Matan, if you hear this, Gabor, I've been trying to get you on the podcast. I would love it. I've written a couple things. I don't even get
Gabor Mate?
Yeah, Mate. I said Matan, didn't I? Mate, yes.
Yeah.
I assume my message isn't getting to them. And then the few no's that I've gotten, one I really respected wholeheartedly. I reached out to this woman that I think is so cool that has left the United States. She's raising her children out of the country, doing it mostly on social media, like running a business that way.
Yeah.
And when I asked her, she said, I'd be glad to do it for a fee, which I respect that. I'm like, your time is worth money. In fact, I think all of our guests, their time is worth money. We're just not making the money to pay anyone yet. And that's what I told her. I said, I respect that so much. I know your time is worth money. And when we can pay for it, I will call you back. And she said, great. You know, I take no offense to that. I haven't had anybody come back with like are you crazy? Your podcast sucks. You know, I haven't had anything like that. So there's nothing to take personally. And also, we've had so much interest. We've had people reach out to us to be on the podcast. So I feel like there's no shortage of topics to talk about.
Yeah.
A man I was dating early on, he runs his own YouTube channel and he was like churning content. He's actually the one that showed me how to get on YouTube. He said, oh, aren't you so bored? Aren't you tired of producing material? And I was like, no, there's no shortage of stuff I want to talk about. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, as we were getting ready for this episode, I was looking at prior episodes and things we've done. And some of those topics I'd even like to revisit. They're still part of what we're talking about. And then there's other things. There's things that opened up from doing the podcast. I've learned how to talk about my feelings a little bit.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up. Just over the last 24, 36 hours, I have learned better how to express what's going on with me and to have difficult conversations with people that I love deeply. Thank you.
How did it go?
I think it went well. I didn't hurt her feelings.
Let me ask you this. You said you were able to express how you were feeling.
Yeah.
How were you feeling?
And this is a huge thing too, because for years, I haven't been able to put words to this. I was really triggered and I couldn't quite put my finger on why, other than it's just not where I want to be. I figured out it's because the person that I'm being very vague about, my loved one, is depressed. And I mean, not that she's been diagnosed, but I do believe she is clinically deeply depressed and has been for decades. She's probably had some form of depression, maybe since childhood. And she's always been the overachiever. She's always been the good girl, the one who did all the things, all the things. And she's fucking brilliant. And she has a heart as big as the sky. But there's issues that haven't been addressed. And there's depression there. There's things that she hasn't confronted. She's retired, so she doesn't have that distraction. Everything that's going on up here, you can see it in her environment and you can see it on her face. Sometimes she just looks so sad, and that hurts me so deeply because she's such an amazing human being. And I figured this out too over years, that I was afraid that was going to be me. And had I not gone to therapy and had I not run away, and that's exactly what I did, but I had to leave to develop me and to become my own person and to not get sucked into it, into her depression. And I think she gets it. I mean, I didn't say this part about, well, that's why I ran away and that's why I don't go home often and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. That's a little tough.
Yeah, that's a little tough. But it hurts me to see her not getting the help that she needs. And I'm not saying she's debilitated or, whatever, but she's so used to not doing for herself that it just didn't even occur to her to get help.
Well, once again, capitalism,
Yeah.
culture, women growing up as a woman in the United States.
Yeah. This is somebody who, God, I mean, she has a huge heart, and she's this vibrant, vivacious, brilliant woman, but there's a deep sadness that sometimes I think is so prevalent that the mask or the other part of her personality can't hide it. It just breaks my heart because this is someone that I love dearly, but it also scares the hell out of me because I don't want to get there. One of the things that has come out of what we do with the podcast and the people that we talk to is that I was able to not only to have that conversation, but I was able to identify what the trigger was when I walked in the front door. Because I literally was like, oh, okay, I have to go. I literally want to just run and get back in my car. And I did, but I didn't. But I figured it out and I get it. And hopefully, my dear loved one who means the absolute world to me will do what she needs to do and get the help that she needs to get so that she can get back to herself and maybe even to figure out who she is without the label of whatever her job is.
Ooh, so tough. Such a tough thing to do. I was right
Yeah,
there. I was
same,
right there.
same.
Are there any things that you do, because you said you were able to recognize this, are there any things that you do differently now or do regularly now because of something that one of our guests or one of us has said on the podcast that has changed the way you operate?
It's easier for me to recognize what is the conditioning and what is really me. Yeah, I have days where I get stuck in the loop, but I can see, okay, A, I'm in a loop. B, the loop isn't me. The whatever thought that is just ruminating, that's not me. This is something from society that's like stuck in my head. And yeah, that's one thing that's a lot easier than it used to be. Also, standing up for myself and realizing that I'm not going to be for everybody, and that's okay.
That's a tough one to swallow, isn't it? Like, not
It
everyone's
it
going to like me.
really it really is because
Hmm.
A, I want everybody to like me, and how dare they not like me? I'm awesome. But then there's that part of me, it's like, oh, maybe I need to change who I am so that they'll like me. I mean, it's that weird back and forth. I can't keep trying to please everybody else and not be happy with myself.
You know what I've been doing ever since I heard it?
What?
Okay, so I've been trying for a couple years to feel my emotions, and the
Hmm.
podcast has certainly helped with that. But sometimes I'll get like, I don't know, stuck in grief has been something that's been big for me recently. And I
Hmm.
will think back to that tapping thing. And I don't always do the tapping, but sometimes I do. But the one thing that has really stuck with me is the phrase, I accept myself. I'll think, I'm in grief right now, but I accept myself. I
Yes.
accept myself. That I accept myself actually in Clara's voice has come to me so many times. I accept
Oh, wow.
myself. I accept myself. I accept myself.
Wow.
I know it's so powerful. Almost anything could be happening. Like, I could be angry with someone in my life, and I'm like, okay, I'm allowed to be angry. I accept myself. I'm allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be angry. We are allowed to have anger. I
Yeah.
accept myself.
But for me, I haven't gotten to where you are.
Oh, I haven't, I don't mean I've completely accepted myself. I'm saying those words come to my mind in Clara's voice because we did that exercise. Remember, I was doing it. I was doing the tapping.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was crying my eyes out during that one. So
when I have a stress response now, I hear her voice. I hear it. I accept myself. And I think, oh yeah, I accept myself. That has been amazing. I've felt that today. Had we not done this podcast, I don't know that I would have ever experienced that. I would say anybody, I know she only works with young ones, but anybody who has the opportunity to work with someone who does tapping like that, I found that to be just one experience, changed my life. All right. I wanted to start the podcast with you defending the term feminism. Remember in the beginning, like it was like a feminist podcast. Yeah. And I still, that's still in our intro and we say that all the time. Yeah. But I felt like in the beginning that it needed to be defended. I personally had so many people in my life that were like, we don't need feminism anymore. The world is equal, blah, 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 right? Or feminist is this, feminist is anti-man, feminist. And I felt like I wanted our audience to understand us, to understand feminism. And what's changed 100 episodes in is we've had all these guests with all their different opinions. We haven't had a ton of men on, but we've had enough to get different viewpoints. And even some of the women that we've had on have pushed back a little bit on the term feminism, which has been very helpful. I remember Nicole on the podcast, Nicole Shook on the podcast about the modern day witch. And I asked her about feminism and she pushed right back with her question about feminism. And it really made me think. What began as this incessant need to have people understand me has allowed me to more understand other viewpoints around the term feminism and what people think it might mean to them, which has been very eye-opening.
Interesting.
How about you? What have you learned about that?
I don't think I ever was concerned with making somebody understand feminism or what it meant to me. I don't know. Even as I say that, I'm like, is that really true? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wanted people to understand that they needed it. I don't know if it was necessary for everybody to have the same definition of feminism as I do, but I think there's a core of it that I feel like needs to be in however anybody defines it. There needs to be that core of it. I just want people to realize that this is why we still need it. Like all the shit that's going on in the world is why we still need it. Think about it. When we started, Roe was still the law of the land.
Yes.
Not now. So I think
that in itself should be enough evidence.
Yeah, exactly. But I think maybe people are starting to get it now. Like, oh, this is why we still need it. I think maybe that's just me being naive, but
I still think there are not very many men that I would say are involved in like pro-feminist men's movements. I would really like to meet those people. So this is a call out.
Absolutely.
This is a call out for anyone who is involved in like a pro-feminist men's movement to come be a guest on the show. If you know somebody, I would love to hear more about that and meet more people involved.
For sure. Absolutely. Because I want to meet more men who identify as feminists. Just in general, I would like to first off to know that they actually exist, and B, to just hear how that experience is for them as men, as opposed to being a feminist woman.
Well, don't you think? Okay, thinking of all the men we had on the podcast, I can only think of one that I think would truly identify as a feminist, and I think that was Rahul.
Except he turned it around and said that he didn't like the label.
True. True, but I still think his actions are feminist.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. For
But
sure.
maybe you're right. Maybe not a single man we have interviewed really identifies as a feminist.
I will say that I was a little surprised when Rahul turned it around and said, I don't like the label, but there's strong women in my life, blah, 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 blah.
I'm not surprised by that.
Oh,
This is why right back to that thing where I felt I had to defend the term, because my whole life I've been faced with that.
okay.
My whole life, everyone I have known has been somewhat semi against the feminist label, because there has been so much identification with that label of women want to be above men, not side by side with men, not equal with men, or all genders equal. I shouldn't just make this a gender, men and women, but
Yeah.
all people equal. I do believe there are a lot of people that think the feminist movement is about taking something from men. That's what Nicole said. Taking something from men in order to make women better. And that is not what it's about.
Yeah, that's not it at all.
I have felt that we needed to prove that. In the beginning, we needed to make our definition of feminism clear. I'm feeling that need again.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't want to be seen as a man-hating feminist. Even my daughter said something this week about how when you and I first started the podcast, she called us feminazis or something like that. And I'm like, no, we weren't at all. Yeah. And I was like, no, we're not at all. And she's like, well, you were so intense. And I think I was really intense. Right.
I don't know. I don't think I saw it that way. Maybe I need to go back and listen to the earlier episodes again, but I don't think I felt that.
Maybe you haven't had that pushback in your life that I have had around the term.
Maybe I haven't.
Well, quite possibly my life includes a lot more white, privileged American males. Maybe it doesn't. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Okay. Even my brother doesn't like the feminist term.
Interesting.
And I would say in most of his actions, I would say he behaves in a way that I find I think he's a good man.
You know what? I've never asked my brother if he would consider himself a feminist.
Maybe I've had the discussion with men in my life, like the person that I dated for the longest most recently, he was so anti the feminist term.
Yeah.
But then his actions were somewhat anti-feminist also. So those things equate to me. My brother doesn't seem I mean, there are a few things because all men have some biases, right? All women have some biases, right? We all have biases.
Everybody has a bias, at least
there
one
are
about
some
something. Yeah.
Things, but ultimately, I would say my brother is a lovely, loving family man. Okay, for example, we're jumping in the waves in Cancun this week, and his son said something to me like, my dad says that boys can't cry. And so I get on my brother's case and I'm like, that's so sexist. Why can't he cry? And he goes, if I had a daughter, I'd tell her to toughen up and stop crying. So I'm like, okay, this really isn't a feminist issue then. It's an issue about not being able to show your emotions.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say that when you're raising young boys and you tell them not to cry, that a little bit of feminism would help in that situation. That's what I would say. But really, in some regards, it isn't about feminism. It's about, I accept myself. I'm crying. I accept my emotions.
Emotional intelligence.
Bingo. So we could all use a little more emotional intelligence.
Yeah, we could.
But what I'm trying to say is I've had a lot of pushback around that word. And when we first started the podcast, I was really intense about defending it. And now I've kind of mellowed into we've had so many guests express their opinion. When Rahul said that, I wasn't taken aback because it was like, oh, I get it. I've seen this all my life.
I'm trying to think about this, and have I had this conversation with any of the men in my life ever?
Oh my God, I've had it so many times. Also, I think you and I come from a different place. I think you've always known you were a feminist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always. Yeah.
I had to decide if I was a feminist. I had to ask people about, are you a feminist? Why are you a feminist? Why are you not? I had to grow into that term myself. So I asked a lot of people about the feminist movement. What did they think? And the feminist movement, I'd like to study it even more, has gone through many, many changes.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of that episode, the one with Rahul, that was one of the most touching episodes that I think we've ever done on a personal level.
Yeah. Why so?
How do I explain this? Okay, first of all, it was touching because we've all known each other, but not known each other for years.
Yeah.
We have walked in the same halls, sat in the same classrooms, probably took the same tests. I remember he was in I don't remember what, I think science of some sort. He was in one of my classes. I have one vivid memory of him when I had a bad perm and I was trying to hide under a sweatshirt because my hair was so bad. And I have one memory of him in class being like, "Oh, Jenny, right?" Because my teacher made me take the hat off and my hair was all, and the kids laughed. And so I have that memory, but I don't have a ton of memories. And then when he was saying his sadness around not connecting. Oh, and that is what the podcast has done. We connected, me, you, and him, in a way that we never did in high school. Mm-hmm. And so that episode was so touching to me in a way that maybe we were too young and too immature to connect, but maybe not. Maybe we could have. Had we been raised in a different culture or a different way or it brought to me a certain sadness about the past. I wish I had known. I wish I had done something. I wish I had reached out. It brought that sadness, but it also brought this. And what a beautiful thing that we three as an adults could sit down and talk about that, where we were in our lives at that time. What a beautiful freaking thing. I don't think I'll ever forget it.
Yeah, I had no realization of any sadness with him when we were growing up. The few memories I have of him, he was the guy who was super, super nice and super smart. And he just had this big grin on his face.
Funny.
And he had this like cute laugh. It was just kind of like this happy laugh. I remember that he seemed to get along with everyone. Like, I don't remember there being any sort of like, oh, well, that group doesn't like this guy and this guy doesn't like that group. And they said he can't hang out. Like, there was none of that.
Did we have that in high school? Did we have specific groups like that? I mean, I had a tight knit group of friends. Did we?
I think there were cliques for sure. I don't know.
Was I a clique?
You were. I thought you were one of the popular kids. I thought you were in that whole group. But I remember we talked about this before.
But who was that whole group?
You and Jenny Kent, bunch of other people from swim team.
You didn't even remember
soccer team. Girl, I don't remember.
Well, I was friends with those people.
Soccer team. You know, I thought all of y'all were just, like y'all were just this group that kind of like moves around. Like, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm over here. And I thought Rahul was part of that group. You know what it is? I just pictured everybody else just moving around in this little pod. And then there was me. And maybe a couple of other people that I was like, yeah, you're not part of the popular group.
I feel like I just knew everybody in high school. But then the truth of it, on our graduation day, when everybody walked across that stage, there were people I had no idea. I had never even met them. I was like, who is that?
Yeah.
I just thought I knew everybody. I had a tight, close group of friends, very tight. Yeah. I don't think we were trying to be a clique. Maybe we were.
We were kids. We all had something going on that, at least I'll speak for myself. I didn't reach out to a lot of people because I was like, I don't want people to really know what's going on behind the curtain. Right. And I'm certainly not. And I was like, I'm certainly not going to invite anybody to come over and hang out at my house. First of all, because my house was chaos. Second, because my house was not like the TV family. And third, because I didn't think anybody would come. And then I thought if they do come, they're going to be bored. And I'm not going to be a very good hostess.
Okay. Yeah. And that brings up another thing is that in the beginning of the episodes, you and I tried to research a lot of very complicated topics and talk about them. And I think we did a good job. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I thought we learned a lot. But what we've learned also is we don't have to be the expert on everything. There's so many people that
Yes.
are willing to come on and talk about the things that they've worked in for 20 years and they've studied or they just have an interest in. Everybody has a story to tell. And I have not done a podcast with you with a guest that I didn't think was super interesting.
Same.
Right.
Same. Like there have been episodes where leading up to it, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have anything to talk about or if I'm going to relate to whatever. But then every single time it turns out to be this really interesting discussion or the guest has a really interesting backstory or whatever. And we end it and I'm like, well, shit, I was nervous for nothing. What was I thinking that I wasn't going to connect with that topic or that person or whatever? Which really has led me to realize that I can't always trust my first thought. I can't always trust
Interesting.
my first judgment. Like my gut reactions, yes, that's another thing. The whole thing about learning to trust myself, that's one thing. There's a part of me that sometimes is a little too quick to think that I don't know if I'm going to have anything to bring to this conversation. But then the conversation gets going, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I really love this discussion. Oh, I do have.
All right. Be specific.
Something to.
Tell us about one that you didn't think was going to go well.
There's two that I was really nervous about ahead of time.
Okay.
The one with Pay Carter, I was really nervous about that one.
How come?
I was afraid I wasn't going to ask the right questions or ask them in the right way. I didn't want to say or ask anything that was offensive or off.
That's interesting. I didn't know you were nervous about that one.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about that one, but it was great, and I mean, it
Yeah.
was a really awesome discussion, and yeah, I was really nervous for some reason, and I was really nervous about the one with Christina Bruce.
I know. I remember that. That's the one I was going to bring up. I know you were.
Nervous. I was so nervous about that one because I thought it was going to be this whole thing about like weight loss and everybody's got to move their body. And I was just like, I don't move my body. Oh no, I don't want to. Oh, I can't do there's like the sensual movement and the other movement and then the thing. And it's going to be about, and I really felt like I wasn't going to be able to connect. So I was really afraid. And I thought, oh, I don't think this one is going to.
Damn, you did your best work in that one. And that one was over. I was so proud of you.
I was afraid that because of my whole journey and baggage with weight loss and all of that and where I am right now and wanting to lose weight and trying to get back into shape, I was so afraid that I was gonna have to be like, well, this is not a weight loss show, so we're just gonna have to get off that topic. Like I was so afraid it was just gonna be telling all women that they're gonna have to lose weight, and that's not what it was. But I was so afraid that that's what it was gonna be, because even though I have my own issues with weight and wanting to lose weight and all the things, I don't want us to be pushing that on other people.
What did you learn on that episode?
That I literally need to stop making assumptions about shit.
I don't mean that. I mean, actually talking to her, what did you learn in that episode? Do you remember?
Isn't about, a system that is telling you need to do this, you need to do that, da 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 da. You do what's comfortable for you because you want to do it, not because, or like if you want to lose weight, fine, but do it because you want to feel better in yourself, or you want to eat better, or you want to have more energy, or what, not, oh, because society says I should be this thing. And so, yeah, so I was so nervous going into that one. And so I was like, I'm just gonna take a back seat. This was fun, and whatever. I'll ask a question here and there, but I'll just take a back seat.
You were like
And
the grand participant. You know what I learned in that episode?
what'd you learn?
I accept myself.
Ah,
If I want to lose weight, I accept myself. If
yeah,
I love my body just the way I am, I accept myself. If I don't like my body, I accept myself. I accept myself. I
yeah,
accept myself. It's
yeah,
just another, to me, it was another repeat of that same lesson because I've been on that diet yo-yo. I've done every
yeah.
diet in the world. I've lost weight. I've gained weight. I've lost weight. I've gained weight. I could do
Hmm.
it. I know how to lose weight. I could lose weight again. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done with diet culture. I accept myself right here, right now, being done with diet culture. I'm done with it.
Yeah,
Tomorrow, maybe I change my mind and I do something else. I thought that episode was brilliant. I really hope that she gets some clients because I feel like
yeah.
that's really part of that whole unbecoming again. Like
Hmm.
all of these messages that we are just bombarded with as women. And I think men too. Men
Yeah,
more and more are getting bombarded with those same messages. And
yeah,
says who? Says
yeah.
who?
This just popped into my head because I said I need to stop making assumptions about shit. The assumptions that I'm making are the conditioning that I need to let go of.
That's fantastic. Like what?
Like my assumption that Christina was going to be like, well, you have to do this. And because this is what I talk about, you're going to have to agree with, you're going to have to not want to lose weight or whatever.
You were almost anxious about the exact opposite, not someone telling you you need to go on a diet, someone telling you don't go on a diet.
Yeah.
You were nervous that our guest was going to tell you how to live your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't really had anyone who's done that. I think
No,
it will be
no.
really interesting if we get a guest that we fundamentally disagree with and how we handle that because we really haven't had that happen. We may
That's
have
true.
had statements or things here and there that maybe we have a different viewpoint or thought process, but we haven't had
Hmm.
anyone on that we're just like completely and utterly at opposing views. And I think that that could make for an interesting discussion in the future to
Yeah.
it's not that I want to battle somebody on a
No,
podcast, but
no, no. It would have to be somebody who
could have a discussion.
can have a discussion and be respectful and not attack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the last thing on mine is that I wrote, I have learned about my own politics in a circle. So at
Hmm.
first, I got more mad about things or I got more like stuck in my political viewpoint. Prior to that, when I would write about politics on Facebook, etc., before we got into the podcast, there were people who were much harsher about their viewpoint or their
Hmm.
anti-Trumpism, to name one. And I would say, oh, no, no, I can't get that mad at those people. And then through the podcast, I got more mad and I got more like, oh, yeah, anti Trump. I am anti Trump or whatever. And I
Yeah.
got mad about it. And then I kind of came full circle. And the thought I had today just came into my head and I wrote it down is that now I cannot hate my enemy. In fact, I cannot have an enemy. So now
Mm.
I'm sort of back to that place again of people who are pro Trump, they're not my enemy. And I get that our politics are so far apart. I get that.
Mm.
And that's a hard bridge to cross. And yet they are still not my enemy. They are human beings. I accept myself. I accept the world. I have to figure out a way of communication, I guess, without having to prove myself, without that. We're not going to change their mind. They're not going to change our minds.
It's interesting that you bring up, first off, the part about communicating, and then the part about having somebody on the show who maybe doesn't see eye to eye or even close to eye with us or either of us. I really want to learn how to have the really difficult, especially the political conversations with people who don't see the world the same way that I do, and to not just shut down when it gets to be too much. Because with conversations that are hard for me, which it's weird to say this because we have hard conversations. That's a premise of the show. But
except we agree though on our standpoint on the heart.
That's true. In my personal life, I mean, like, I'm not a doormat, I don't think, anymore. But if it gets to a point where I'm like, this really just isn't going anywhere, we're not making any progress, I've sort of hit the wall and hit the wall and hit the wall, then I just shut down. I would like to learn how to not shut down and how to maybe exit the conversation or end the conversation in a way that is not problematic and in a way that doesn't
end the friendship.
Right. Or prevent a friendship from happening.
It's tough though, because, okay, so I hear what you're saying. And the first thing that comes to my mind is that, okay, if we're really going to have a deep conversation with someone that we're maybe a political mismatch for, the question is, to me, if I'm on one side of this, is can I truly listen? Can I truly listen and hear what they're saying without, number one, going to no, but women's rights, no, but Trump's an asshole, no, but, all the things that come up. Like, can I truly listen for understanding? But let's say I can even do that. I can even truly listen for understanding, and I can truly hear what people are saying. Fundamentally, chances are I'm still going to disagree with them. Can I be friends? Can I date someone who doesn't see me as a whole human being because I'm a woman? And this isn't politics, because that's not Republican versus Democrat, but that's someone who is anti-feminist. Can I truly be friends with a man who is anti-feminist if he doesn't see me as a whole human being?
That's an interesting question.
Think about it in terms of race. Could you truly be friends with someone who didn't see you as a full human being? You just really can't. Okay, that being said, that's where we are. We've learned to listen. We're learning communication. We've learned to listen, to really hear them, to really try and understand. We paused, we listened, we took it all in. We didn't jump on with our responses. And we still disagree. We still believe we, women, are full human beings. And so this person doesn't. And so we can't be friends with them, right? We can't really have a friendship. We can't. But that doesn't make them our enemy. We're still not gonna, I'm not gonna try and burn down their house because they don't see me as a human being. I'm not going to try and hurt their children because they don't see me as a human being.
Right. But that also means that I'm not going to vote for them if they run for any office.
And it also means, for me, in many ways, if I know I'm not going to support their business, I'm going to put my money where people are voting the way that I want to vote. It's a tall order to have a discussion with somebody who fundamentally disagrees. We really haven't had anyone on the podcast who wasn't, I'm assuming, mostly politically aligned with us. Even the people we have on who wouldn't say that they were feminists, they still believed women were human beings, not objects.
There's still, I would say, our guests definitely are left-leaning. I can't imagine having somebody on the show who wants to argue that, or whether they're being devil's advocate or they really believe that, say, people of color are the devil. Like, I'm sorry,
we're not even going to have that conversation.
Right. I can't imagine having that conversation with somebody, or having a conversation with somebody who is like trans people shouldn't exist. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not having that discussion.
They're
Fuck
fucking
that.
off the podcast. But
Yeah.
okay, say, let's go back to the race issue. What if they didn't think black people were the devil, but they thought because George Floyd might have had a counterfeit bill, what happened to him was okay?
There are people in my life who think that.
Exactly, mine too. And that's why I
Mhm.
bring it up, because to me,
Uh-huh.
those people in my life who think that way are actually no longer in my life. I cannot be friends with them. However, they are not my enemy. That is such a complicated one. And I think where I was getting when we first started doing the podcast and we were like so into the politics, and a lot of this stemmed from what happened to George Floyd. And you and the book club taught me so much about the systematic racism that I didn't know anything about.
Mhm.
Shame on me, but I didn't. Actually, I don't believe in shame. So take that away. I didn't know what I didn't know then. I now know what I
Yeah,
know.
exactly. You
You
know
can't go
better, you
back.
do better.
From George Floyd spurred a lot of what happened in our lives.
Yeah.
He was murdered. Some people say because there might have been a counterfeit bill involved, he deserved what happened to him. I can't abide by that in
Yeah,
friendship.
I can't either. I can't.
I don't know the man, but nobody deserves to die because of that.
There are people in my life that I purposely have not talked about George Floyd with. My thing is, my peace of mind is too important to have a discussion with somebody that I know is not going to actually listen. So it won't be a discussion. It'll just be the other person blowing up and getting angry. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to entertain that. I mean, that's just something I'm not going to invest my energy in. I'm all for having the difficult conversations if they are truly conversations. If they're just going to be tool for someone to express their anger all over me, no, I'm not here for that. When George Floyd was murdered, there was someone in my friend group who posted something that was just, he just wasn't reading the room. It's like, dude, that's not helpful at all. In fact, that's a really painful thing to post right now. I stewed over it and stewed over it and stewed over it. And there were a lot of our friends who like just came back with like stuff, in his feed, like, dude, what's wrong with you? Blah, 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 blah. And I thought, okay. And so I said something and I was like, how can you say this knowing how your friends who are Black are feeling in this moment? Like, how can you say something like that? Like, do you not care? No response from him. No response. And I waited a little while and I was like, and so I unfriended him. And I was like, I can't. This person isn't even addressing the fact that that hurt me. 2 weeks later, at a mutual friend's house, this person showed up and everybody was just like, everything was hunky dory. Other people of color who were there were like, everything's great. I'm like, maybe I'm the asshole. I still don't, I don't know. It was a difficult thing to do because I had to separate the politics from the fact that this person had been, other than this, had been a good friend to me.
But it isn't politics. It was the murder of a Black man.
I know. I literally, it is still it's a contentious one for me because I go back and forth between, oh, this person is good to me and is generally a good person, but I caved and didn't stand on my morals. Like,
Raquel, that was my boyfriend. That's who I was dating when George Floyd was murdered. And that's why I broke up with him.
Yeah.
And he also thinks that my politics are insane and that I'm cutting off my own happiness because I can't see his point on this. And I'm like, but no. The question is, I get that he was good to you. And I get that my boyfriend was good to me. But we are all connected. We are all one. I don't care that people can't see that. We are all one. What hurts one of us hurts all of us. And if people continue to hurt people the way that they hurt George Floyd, murdered him maliciously, they hurt us all. They hurt us all. We are all of the same energy. I just can't anymore.
I get it. And there's part of me that beats myself up over the fact that,
well, don't do that shit.
I caved. Well, but that, I mean, girl,
well, don't do that shit.
Look, we still learning, and I'm definitely still learning. So
don't be beating yourself up.
Yeah. Well,
that's like throwing more on, like, okay, let's make it triple bad. No, it's just that it's tough because that's also my knee-jerk reaction in a relationship is to, I get pissed, I break up, right? That's I don't know how to have a fight and not break up with somebody. Well, I do now because I haven't been able to
I don't either. So what I do is I just shut down so that the fight doesn't happen. No, I'm totally serious.
I'm only laughing because it's like looking in a mirror.
Yeah, I can shut down. All right, I'm just gonna sit here. Person can just have their moment. I'm just gonna sit here and be like,
this is the funniest thing because has nothing to do with our podcast, but I was telling my daughter that has been such a big thing for me because a couple of times while we were taking care of my mom where she had Alzheimer's, I fought with my daughter. Like we fought because our tensions were high, shit was hard. And we fought, and I screamed at her one day in the car, and I told her to shut up. And in our house, shut up is a swear word. I never let my kids say that to each other.
Yeah.
And I said, my mom shut up. And she looked shocked, and I knew I hurt her. It's not like I said, fuck you, because we swear, but we're not allowed to tell each other to shut up. Yeah. And I did. And I told her that this was a very valuable lesson for me because if that had happened between me and a man, that man would be gone.
Yeah.
Gone. But she's my daughter. I can't break up with her. So I had to be like, okay, it was a fight. You disagreed. That's normal. People disagree. Tensions were high. Like we were under a tremendous amount of stress.
Yeah.
And it's okay to fight. It's okay to get mad. You're allowed to get mad. You don't have to stop loving someone because you got mad.
Yeah, that's a lesson I'm still learning.
Oh God, it's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. And how did we get so disconnected from that?
It's the good girl thing.
Yeah.
It's the good girl thing. And I don't know about you, but we're not taught how to fight well. I mean, we as a society cannot even have a discussion. So how the hell are we going to fight fair? We don't know. And not just fight fair, but fight well so that nobody's broken and nobody's hurt and nobody's like, I'm getting the fuck out.
My daughter's better at it than I am. What she does is she says, goodbye, I'll see you later. And she separates herself.
Okay.
And she separates herself for a good long time, for like 24 hours plus.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It's hard because I want to keep going. I want to be like, let's duke this out. Let's get it now. Let's hash it out. I want some resolution right now. Right. I want that. And that is not always the safest, smartest way to go. 24 hours later, when you're not so stressed and you're not so angry and you're not so, you're a lot less likely to break up with your daughter. Boy, this has been a funny conversation. We really went. We haven't talked like this in a long time. We had a lot to say.
It's been a very long time. We did.
Was there anything on your list that we didn't go over?
Do you think that doing the podcast and talking to all the people that we've talked to and learning all the things that we've learned helped you with your mom's passing?
Oh, hell yeah. We have talked about it a lot on the podcast, starting way back when with Tiffany Mazurek when we had the grief episode, learning a lot about grief, learning a lot about sitting with the feelings, learning about saying, I accept myself. I'm in fucking grief right now and I accept myself. All of these things have added to my coping mechanisms over the past however long I've been taking care of her. Also, there's something energetic that happens on this podcast with you and me primarily, but then also with the two of us when we have a guest.
Yeah.
There's some kind of like love that comes through the screen. There's an energetic exchange that happens. And sometimes it's more powerful than other times.
Yeah.
Sometimes you connect with a guest more than I do, and sometimes I connect with a guest more than you do. But there is always an energetic exchange.
Yeah.
And there have been some people on the podcast that have been our guests that have been either with what they write on social media or what they have said during the podcast or our connection since the podcast has ended that have helped me walk through the passing with my mom. We have spoken to so many strong women with women's wisdom. And believe me, I am not healed, but that women's wisdom has helped carry me through. There has been talk about life and death. There's been talk about divinity. There's been talk about souls and afterlife and passing and just all of these little things that have been helping me put together my feelings on my mom's death. And I think before the podcast, I probably would have been like, my mom died, take a week off of work, go back to work and don't think about it again. Which in some aspects would have been easier. Would have been a lot easier. Like right now, sometimes I get bored with myself. I'm like, are you fucking still grieving? Are you kidding me? It's been almost 3 months now. But the other part is like I do Kundalini yoga with Kara Bhatar a couple times a week, maybe not religiously, maybe on and off, however my body is feeling. But since my mom died, every single time I do yoga with her, my body starts shaking. And these are not hard moves. Like we were doing this move where we're just moving in a small circle and my body started shaking. Before we did this podcast and before we talked to all the people we talked to, I would have been like, what's going on? This is weird. And I don't remember who told us or where, but now I know that the body shaking is the body letting off its trauma.
Yeah.
You're releasing trauma. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing yoga with Kara and my body is releasing trauma. This is a good thing. I've cried every single day since my mom died in some way, shape, or form. But the tears are bringing it out. The shaking's bringing it out. The talking to people is bringing it out. I am not shoving it in a box, putting a lid on it and putting it in the corner of my subconscious, which I'm sure I'm going to have to do a little bit of in some ways. But yeah, that's my long-winded way of saying there have been so many messages, so much outpouring, so much support, so much. Women together are fucking powerful. And that's what we have created here. And on the episode, sometimes I'm greedy and selfish and I ask questions for myself. And then I think about it. That's a great thing.
Of course it is. And I don't think of it as greedy and selfish.
Well, I love it. I'm like, okay, what can I find out that helps me here? But I say those words like taking back the ownership of them. Like for a female to do something for yourself is greedy and selfish. But I'm going to be greedy and selfish and I'm going to love myself. We need different words.
This makes me think about, we've had conversations about your rage and how you worry that if you really tap into it, that you won't stop, that you won't ever get to the bottom of it. Losing a parent, so I'm told, I mean, because I didn't have this reaction when my dad died because I wasn't close to him. The grief can feel bottomless. And sometimes people say that they're afraid to feel it because they're afraid that they won't stop. You're feeling your grief and you're still living life. Can you extrapolate from that to you can feel your rage and still live your life?
Okay, so you bring up some really valid points. In my grief, I have felt tremendous rage. Number one. Number two, I'm not there right now in this moment, but I have had moments over the last 3 months where my grief feels like it will never fucking end. Like it is an abyss that I will fall into. I don't think our society ever, maybe we just don't have the words. I don't think I ever understood what it was going to feel like to lose my mother. It's such a tremendous loss. One of the things I'm angry about is nobody explained that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they tried to, and there's no,
Yeah.
maybe there's no understanding it. I've had friends who've lost their mother, and I knew that they were grieving, and I tried to reach out in the way that I could, but I had no concept of how fucking big that grief is. I've lost people. My brother died, my sister died, I lost a baby, I lost a grandfather that I took care of. None of that grief compares to the grief I have about my mom. And I don't know if that speaks to her being my mother or if it speaks to our relationship. I have a feeling it's the ultimate piece of the mother wound. The mother
Mm-hmm.
wound is already big.
Yeah.
And then the loss of the mother on top of it is like it's
Well,
just fucking enormous.
I wonder if part of that particular aspect of grief, at least where it applies to the mother wound, is the grief is over the fact that there's no more chances for the wound to be healed.
Maybe I feel like I had so much time with my mom and I really developed a understanding of her and her life, and I saw her as a woman standing aside from her as my mother. I got to experience my mom or understand my mom as a woman, and understanding her as a woman allowed me to be less angry with her because she's just a woman. She's human.
Yeah. Yeah.
When my mom died and I told her all is forgiven, all is well, I
Yeah.
really truly feel that with my mom.
Yeah.
And yet it's still such a tremendous loss
Yeah.
for me. I don't know if everybody feels this way. My mom was the moon to me. She was.
Yeah.
And my children, the sun.
I mean, this is slightly different, but like my dad was not my sun nor my moon. Losing, I was going to say losing him, but I lost him decades before he actually passed. My father's passing did not hit me in the manner that other people's passing has hit me, nor will hit me, in the future.
So maybe it
So
is just the
I, I,
relationship.
I think relationship does have something to do with it. I think. I mean, and I'm saying this having not lost my mother.
The other thing that Kara said to me, which has helped a lot, she said that when she lost her father, and this was well before she left her job and well before she started doing Kundalini yoga, and trying to think of her words around this. I'm paraphrasing, of course, this is not
Mhm.
exactly what she said. This is my understanding of what she said. She said that her mother went so far into grief that her father was lost, that they could never have him again, that it was like this insurmountable thing, that they were separate, that they
Mm.
could never feel his love again, that his love was lost, that it was gone.
Yeah.
And she said it took her many years to realize that that was not true, that
Mhm.
love never dies, that we are all connected, that he is with her, that whatever you want to believe out there, what she said was, if you believe the essence of this person is stolen from you, then your grief is probably forever. If you
Right.
believe you are connected, of course you're going to have grief, but at some point you're still going to have that connection. You're still going to have that love. And that's
Mhm.
one of the reasons I want to work with her, is because that's how I want to feel.
Yeah.
I don't want to carry this. I got half of my life left to live. I want to live it. Now there's that knowing, and this is where part of the grief comes from, and this is part of the not accepting, is I have to live that part without my mom as a physical human being on this earth. And I know that.
Yeah.
And that part hurts.
Yeah.
That part hurts right now. I'm thinking that's the part you learn to accept. You're like,
Mm.
okay, I accept that.
Mhm.
And I move. That's part of like living in the now, in the This is where I am in the now. This is what I accept. This is how life is. The pain we cause ourselves is by not wanting to accept that. Anyway, I'm going way off in a tangent. Yeah, did that answer your question?
It did. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we have a network of women healers to tap into.
We do. That's one of the things that I'm most grateful for, is that we've created this network for ourselves.
It was fun to do a podcast just with you. I shouldn't
Thank
say
you.
just with you.
Too. I think so too. This was really cool. We haven't done this in a while, and
We have a lot to say.
we do.
Any final thoughts?
I love doing this so much. I love doing this with you. I love all the people we get to talk to and topics we get to talk about. I love that we are not trying to be all things to all people. I'm so proud of it, and I plan to be doing this for the rest of my damn life.
Bye, Raquel.
Bye, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone, for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.